You state your name, your position on the bill, and who you're representing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bryan Blevins on behalf of the Texas Trial Lawyers Association. I'm pleased to be here today. However, we are in opposition to the committee substitute for House Bill 1774. But I do want to say at the outset how much I do appreciate the hard work that Representative Bonin and yourself, sir, and many others have done to bring this bill from where it was even 2 years ago to where it is today. But that's still, and I think you've heard today, there are still very sincere and critical concerns about this bill dealing with the removal of claims to federal court. The fact that it treats all claims the same, doesn't distinguish between the good claims and the bad claims. And also because of this very difficult duplicate notice provision. And I want to touch on that just a little bit, because one of the questions that keeps getting asked is, why is it that you don't know your damages? Why would it be so hard? Well, there's several reasons for that. What if you take the lady who was here who's been treated so disparately by her insurance company, and that you decide that that's knowing, and so you treble your damages in your demand, but the jury doesn't agree. Now you've overstated your damages and you lose your attorney's fees.
Well, no.
If you're in your band, you would have to state your actual demand.
Well, but the substitute doesn't do that, though. The substitute says you have to put the amount of property damage you lost.
But again, if it's a function of the property damage, again, it's a trebling of that because of knowing. So again, I think when you read the bill, I could be wrong, but that was our impression.
That's fine. If you got, that's the kind of stuff you need to let us know about. Let the author know so you can consider that, because I think based upon discussions with a lot of you guys, that's why he changed that provision to try to make it pretty clear what was talked about. And if it's not pretty clear, I mean, it needs to be real clear. And I agree.
There was certainly that discussion about loss of use and business interruption. And so these are just other areas that I don't know whether they fall within it, but trebling of the damages under a knowing, mental anguish under the DTPA. How would you calculate what you heard from that lady who clearly has been suffering through this for a long time? How would you calculate and demand for that, and would the jury agree? But then there's also legitimate disputes. There's disputes over whether something is excluded. There's disputes over whether something is cosmetic. There's disputes over whether something is a pre-existing condition or a defect, a construction defect. There's legitimate disputes which are bringing you there in the first place. And so the lawyer is going to assume that he's going to win those disputes. And if he wins them, then the damages are this high. But if he loses them, then all of a sudden a lower amount gets awarded. And so that's when the plaintiff doesn't become made whole, because they lose percentages of the attorney fees. The other area that I want to focus on, though, is, again, it's the question of, we have a concern. We have a legitimate problem, a concern about the number of lawsuits, number of lawyers. But the question that we're still may not be focusing on is why. The assumption is storm chasing lawyers. But TDI's data actually draws some very different pictures potentially. One of those, as you've heard before, over and over again, South Texas, Hidalgo County. Hidalgo County represents 56% of all the lawsuits, majority of the lawsuits that are part of this problem. If you take Hidalgo County out of these numbers, all of a sudden the numbers flatten out to historical levels. Well, why would Hidalgo be different? 2 storms inside of 30 days, 2 deductibles, 2 causes. Large volume of ACV policies, actual cash value, which involves depreciation, areas for increased dispute. But this is also what TDI tells us, and that is at pages 63 and 64 of their report. If you look at what the industry did between Hidalgo and the Panhandle, they paid more than twice as many claims per 100 in the Panhandle as they did in Hidalgo County. They paid a higher percentage per dollar of premium in the Panhandle than in the Hidalgo. Now, those 100 policies and the dollar number, those are supposed to be the equalizers that mean everybody should be flattening out equal. But there is a significant documented disparity between how claimants in the Panhandle were treated from Hidalgo. And maybe that's why so many lawsuits got filed. I also want to point out that with respect to other issues that I think could be responsible for this problem.
Yeah, you got somebody that can help you put those? No, just don't talk until you get up front. So, and in the microphone, just for the record.
I get in trouble for this.
No.
Again, you've heard testimony. The insurance industry hasn't changed its policy of adjusting claims. That's simply not true. What has happened in 2012, 13, 14, and 15 is that the insurance industry is denying more claims at first close and paying no money. So the first time they close the file, they pay $0. 30% more claims are now being closed with no money offered. Is that going to result in more people seeking legal counsel? I think we can agree it probably does. Mr. Ware testified a few moments ago on these. Sorry.
Wait. Yeah, it's okay.
I apologize. Mr. Ware testified on the same concern, which is this. So the first chart was about first close. The other thing that the data tells us about first close is that the insurance industry has reduced its time for first close. Closer to 60 days in 2010 and 11, reducing down to less than a month by the time we get to 2015. So they're rushing to judgment, closing the claim, paying no money, and people think they need help. Overall, through this period, 6 of the 8 largest hailstorms of this decade, the insurance industry is paying 10% fewer people end to end. 10% more claims are being rejected for no money total. That's a change in adjusting. I'm going quickly. I'm going to make smaller boards too, by the way. Next time. These are a little hard to operate. We've talked a lot about the dollars and the cents difference between what happens when you have a lawyer and when you don't. And here's my concern. These are numbers, again, right out of TDI. And the handwritten numbers above, the $29,920 and the $32,504, those are the loss payment. That's not what it costs the insurance industry for their defense lawyers or their adjustment. That's what they're paying on the claim. The difference is if you don't have a lawyer, the insurance industry pays you 77 cents less. Now, does that mean lawyers are jacking up the number, or does that mean that the insurance industry is able to systematically underpay unrepresented people? You had a gentleman up here a few minutes ago who said that his company settled the vast majority of their claims for $3,100. That was their first offer.
But his I don't think it was his company.
Well,
he
I apologize.
adjusted it. But
he
yeah.
adjusted. In that instance, that company was offering $3,100 to settle claims, less than half of what all claims through this period have been settling for by all insurers. Maybe that's why he got sued so many times, because they were only offering half the money. And here's the thing about the notice issue, and this is what what we were talking about before with the you never start at what you're willing to finish for. Here's the thing about the industry. The industry, TDI data, page 50, they are offering less than half when they offer to settle the case than what they ultimately agree to pay. So their first offer to a policy insured who they say they want to treat 100% right all the time, their offer is 50% less than what they're paying. The other problem is, a gentleman who stood up here and said, we want to get it right 100% of the time. TDI fact, they have to reopen a third of every claim. 1/3. They get it wrong a third of the time. And of that 33 1/3%, only 2% are the people represented lawyers, because lawyers are only involved in 2 to 4% of the cases. So therefore, 30+% of the times they get wrong, they have to reopen the file, and no lawyer is involved. How am I doing on my time?
You've way past it, but that's okay. You got one more chart.
I got one more chart. What do we hear about? 2 cents per dollar premium. All of this crisis, all of this concern, at the end of the day, is costing the insurers 2 cents per dollar of premium. They're closing claims with no payment 3% more. They're closing 10% fewer claims with no payment. Again, Bill's come a long way. We appreciate that. I do not feel that this is a criticism of the process. Representative Bonham, please. It's the bill, the concerns we have about the bill, and you're well aware that these concerns were there. The only positive statement for policyholders has been, but we don't want premiums to go up. The data proves the premiums are going up anyway. TDI's data shows the insurance industry is ratcheting up deductibles, ratcheting up premiums, and they could find no relationship to hail lawsuits, hail perils, or attorney involvement. No systematic, no pattern, no relationship. It's just that the insurance industry continues to increase the premiums. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony and your charts. I like the charts. Questions?
I can't find my
Button, you got too many stuff.
Too many binders up here. Maybe that's a good thing. Mr. Blevins, thank you for your testimony. So I want to focus on that last charge. So all this that we've heard about today about the crisis that we're facing, according to some of the testimony, is 2 cents per $1 premium is the increase in losses paid out.
That's according to TDI's data. Yes, sir. That chart's right out of their data. And in fact, they have another chart which actually adjusts their cost by inflation. And the reality is when you look at that chart and they map out over a 10-year period, with the exception of the Hidalgo County year, the cost factors fit on the anticipated line of cost with an annual 3% increase. And TDI actually referenced, in fact, it's in your report today that you got from TDI, that the homeowners, when they were asked, the insurance industry, when they were asked about what was increasing these costs, they cited the dramatic increase in construction costs. TDI, in this report, cited the dramatic increase in asphalt, not asphalt, but shingles cost as a result of increasing prices.
And the point about the Panhandle event versus the Hidalgo County events, so I want to make sure I understand those numbers right. So insurers paid twice as many claims in the Panhandle as is it on a per capita basis?
Per 100 claims.
Per 100 claims.
Or, I'm sorry, per 100 policies, they paid roughly 44% of the claims versus Hidalgo, where they paid about 18% of the claims.
Okay. Is there been any research or conclusions drawn as to why Hidalgo County was so those claims were underpaid, as at least compared to the Panhandle?
No, and that's a consistent theme about the data from TDI, and they say it repeatedly, and that is this is what the numbers are, but they can't tell you why. They looked at them and they said, well, we can't draw a distinction or we can't figure out why there are more lawyers involved in these cases, but here are the different data points, and that's just one of the data points.
Clearly, if someone doesn't have a claim paid and they think they have a real claim, then going to a lawyer for help is what you do under our system, isn't it?
It is, and that's where the ACV policy problem really rears its head. ACV policies, when you're dealing with roofs, if you have replacement cost coverage and enough of your roof gets damaged, then you get a brand new roof. You're done, you're good, you go. When you have an ACV policy, which again is a lower price policy, the consumer's getting what they paid for, the problem is that now we're in a depreciation battle. And that creates opportunities for dispute, and it certainly creates opportunities where consumers don't understand. And when they don't understand, they're going to seek help.
Thank you.
There was somebody that wanted a copy of what the insurance guys gave us. So if you got extra copies, y'all might want to go see him because we don't have any extra here.
I'm sorry, which one?
You told us the stuff that the insurance gave, the material they gave us today.
That's the report that you got from the TDI folks right at the beginning.
Yeah.
There's
that's
actually
what they were looking for.
Right.
So. Wherever you got it, if you'll tell them where to go get it, that's great.
Happy to do that, yes.
Thank you for your testimony today, and we're going to keep going.
Thank you very much.
We were supposed to finish 6 minutes ago, and I'm still showing 8 people remaining.